Welcome, everybody, and thank you for taking the time to join us tonight for our second engagement session for the Cataraqui West Community Park and Trail Systems Plan. My name is Nancy Knight, and I'm a Communications Officer for the City of Kingston, and I'm going to be moderating tonight's session. So behind the scenes tonight, we also have Julia Morbin, who will be our technical producer this evening. Before we get started and we introduce the panel, I do have a couple of housekeeping items to share with you. So first off, this session is live streamed to YouTube and is recorded. So to protect your privacy, all participants have their video turned off and have been muted, and the chat functionality in Zoom has been turned off. Next is that we know that sometimes technology troubles can happen. There is a list of common challenges on Get Involved Kingston, including what to do if your audio or video aren't working. Please note that you can also adjust your view options so that you can see both the presentation and the members of the project team at the same time. If for some reason your internet connection does go down, you can call into the meeting at the number that you see on the screen. Please write it down just in case, and I'll also read it out for you now. The number is 613-453-5818, and the webinar ID is 897-6112-5633. You can also follow live on YouTube, where this meeting is closed captioned. We will do our best to help you with any technology problems tonight, but sometimes the easiest way to resolve issues is to log out of Zoom and rejoin the meeting. So you can do that using the link that you received in the registration confirmation email that you used to join tonight. Today, we're going to provide a question and answer period following our presentation. If you have a question at any point during this presentation, you can use the Q&A feature, but I will hold those questions until we reach that question period. The Q&A feature can be found on the bar at the bottom of the screen. To ask a question, type into the question area. You're also welcome to raise your hand to speak and ask a question during that Q&A. To do this, please use the raise hand function that can be found by following these steps. Click on the Q&A and a pop-up will appear. There will be multiple options. Choose raise hand. I'll be monitoring for any raised hands, and I'll acknowledge you and let you know when it's your turn to turn on your microphone so you can ask a question or make a comment. Another note for tonight, if we don't get to all of your questions, all of the questions from the Q&A and all of the answers will be summarized on our project page on Get Involved Kingston. And you'll also have the opportunity to share your feedback in a survey on that Get Involved Kingston page until December 15th. So on your screen now, you'll see the guidelines for participation. So if you joined us for the first engagement session for this project or at any of our other engagement sessions, it probably looks familiar to you. These guidelines for participation were developed as part of the city's public engagement framework and to make sure that we can all join together and be respectful and open to ideas. So I'm going to leave this up for about 30 seconds so you have the opportunity to read them. If there are any concerns about the guidelines to participation, please let me know by using that raise hand function. All right, thank you. Seeing no objections to the guidelines for participation, we'll proceed into the online engagement session following these guidelines. So I'm now going to pass this presentation over to Patricia Sharp, who is the project manager.
Great, thank you, Nancy. And hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight for the second public information session about the new community park and the trail system in Cataraqui West neighborhood. This is a follow-up to a previous session that we had last July, where we introduced the project and we presented two preliminary concepts for your review. And tonight's session, we have revised those concepts according to the feedback that we received, and we will be presenting them tonight. For those of you who attended in July, you will recognize that our previous panel members Kevin Holmes and Neil Unsworth are back for this evening's presentation. Neil is the manager of Parks and Shoreline at the city, and he has extensive knowledge when it comes to all of the city's parks as well as the parks planning process. Kevin is with the MBTW Group, the landscape architecture firm that the city hired to do the park design. With his many years' experience in park design, he will capably lead us through the updated park plans this evening. And I am Patricia Sharp, which Nancy has already indicated, and I'm with Parks and Shoreline in the Engineering Services Department at the city, and I am the project manager for this project. And just before I hand it over to Kevin, I'd like to mention that there is another opportunity to view and discuss the park plans, and that will be at an in-person drop-in session that's being held tomorrow afternoon from 3 to 5 p.m. at the Invista Center. So if you know somebody who was unable to make it tonight, or if you have more questions, then please come to the Invista Center tomorrow, and I'll see you there. Tonight's session will also be recorded and available for viewing on the city's YouTube channel. Kevin Holmes from MBTW will be presenting an overview of the project this evening, as well as the updated concept plans. There will be an online survey, which you can find at Get Involved Kingston, to provide feedback on the revised plans, as well as provide feedback for the proposed equipment for the playground and the splash pad. Any feedback that we receive will be considered when we are advancing the design, and we will work to have towards having a single final plan for the park. And now I will turn it over to Kevin, who will walk you through the project. And then once he's done, Neil and I will rejoin and we'll open it up for questions. Kevin.
Thank you, Patricia, for that introduction, and good evening, everyone. Very pleased to meet with you again to present the next step in the design of the Cataraqui West Community Park. Over the last number of months, the MBTW group's been working alongside city staff, and we're very excited to present some alternative play concept plans based on the feedback that we've received, as well as options for the playground and the water play equipment. As presented in our first public open house, this new community park is expected to be a destination park and will be designed to support a variety of recreational and athletic interests, including specialized amenities that will attract users from across the city. Our agenda for this evening's presentation will include an update to the project timelines, an overview of the site context and the existing conditions of the park for those that weren't available for the first meeting. We'll also introduce the park design objectives and the park vision, which was established early on in the process. We'll provide you a summary of the public input that was received from the first public information session. And then we'll review the two park layout plans that have been developed. We'll reaffirm the amenities that are proposed within the park, including an off-leash dog park option. And then we'll review the playground equipment design options, as well as the splash pad equipment design options, and then finish with an overview of the conceptual trail system. We'll also discuss the next steps on how you can access the online survey to provide feedback about the park layout, as well as the equipment that's being proposed tonight. So in terms of our timeline, phase 1 has been completed, and it included preparing the topographic base plan for the park. We conducted some site reviews of the park site, as well as the surrounding trail system locations, potential trail system locations, and photo documented those to sort of assist with our preparation of some opportunities and constraints that are considered in the design of both the park and the trails. From that point, 2 alternative concept plans, or what we call facility fit plans, were developed and were presented at the first public open house in July. Tonight's presentation will focus more on a summary of the public's input received from the first public open house, a review of the 2 refined park layout plans, and a review of the playground equipment, as well as the splash pad equipment options. Moving forward from the feedback received from tonight's presentation and survey, We will then refine and select a final design for the park, which we will then develop, as well as maintaining or selecting the preferred playground and splash pad equipment. And then final park design will then be followed by detailed design. And then the future works in phase 3 will include capital budget approval in 2023. It is anticipated that the park construction will commence in the spring of 2023, and weather permitting will be completed during the 2024 season. Trail improvements are slated in the future and not really contemplated yet, except for potentially one small linkage from Cataraqui Woods Drive. So for those that weren't at the first meeting, I'll just give you a quick overview of the site context. The park is situated within the Woodhaven subdivision and is located within the Cataraqui West neighborhood. The park is large, it's 5.67 hectares in size, and it's located west of Bay Ridge Drive, east of Collins Creek, north of Cataraqui Woods Drive, and it fronts onto Holden Street. The park is situated in a new residential community and is in close proximity to schools that are located to the south. There's also a hydro corridor to the north, while a gas line borders the south edge of the park. In terms of the existing conditions for the park, the site is generally flat, with some grassy fields that are separated by hedgerows of some mature trees, as well as regenerating scrub. And you can see that from some of the visuals on this slide. We feel there's a tremendous opportunity to preserve the majority of this existing vegetation and use it as natural buffering between different recreational uses within the park. The park's ideally situated to link to the east-west trail located in the hydro corridor that's directly north of the site, as well as a future gas line pathway to the south within the park boundaries. There's also future north-south or future connection to the north-south trail in the Collins Creek open space lands located to the west. At the onset of the project, we established some key design objectives for this park, and this is a little bit of repetition from the first public open house, but I really think it's vital to sort of understand what our objectives are for this park. So the park design should be sensitive to the site context and respect and enhance the natural features of the site and the surrounding area. The park design should provide spaces for both active and passive recreational uses. The park design should incorporate a sustainable approach to stormwater management, to ongoing park maintenance and waste reduction strategies. The park design should be pedestrian friendly by integrating connections to and from the wider community that the park is situated in, including the residential areas and future and existing trails and pathways that are within the community. And finally, the internal pathway system will be designed to meet the city's accessibility design standards. Once we got into this design process, we established the following vision for the park: to design a park that enhances and preserves the natural environment. Both active and passive recreational uses will be sensitively integrated into the natural environment to increase the opportunities for connecting with nature. The next couple of slides are going to be an overview of some of the input that we received from the initial public open house, which generated over 220 responses and comments on both the park design and the trail system. So based on the review of the comments, the highlights of the feedback are as follows. The feedback indicated that the two options presented last July and shown on this slide, the majority of respondents preferred concept A over concept B. There was a strong support for preserving the existing vegetation within the park space. There is the open naturalized meadow, which showed up on the concepts, was well liked. Numerous respondents commented that the softball diamond should be located away from both the playground, the splash pad, and the parking lot for safety reasons. I think that makes sense. The looping pathway system that was shown on option B was well received. Some indicated a desire to have challenging play equipment. And a frequent comment was a request for an off-leash dog park. Further, there were several responses that indicated they preferred the north-south orientation of the parking lot again along Holden Street. There was also some concerns about whether there was enough parking that we had shown. I believe it was 30 spaces. And many expressed the need for washrooms within the park. So informed by the feedback received from this previous engagement session, we revised the park concepts, and we are presenting these here tonight. Now, both concepts illustrate the same amenities, but with different locations and in different configurations within the park. The exception, however, is the off-leash dog park, which is only proposed in concept B. The rectangular sports field and the softball diamond are actually in the same location in both design options. The next few slides are going to reiterate what the proposed park amenities are. And the selection of these facilities within the park was largely informed by the city's Parks and Recreation Master Plan, as well as through some further input from residents in the public open house. So based on that, and I'll just outline, the park design will include the following amenities, or may include the following amenities: a softball diamond, a rectangular sports field, which would be grassed for various sports, including soccer, football, or lacrosse, potential location for an off-leash dog park, tennis courts, pickleball courts, a splash pad, junior and senior playgrounds, a basketball court, a shade structure with seating, pedestrian walkways through the park with accessible seating, a parking area, and then connections from the park to adjacent future trail system that will connect to residential areas and some nearby schools. And of course, with any park design, there's going to be tree planting and open space play areas. And then there's also the potential future park washroom building. So we've selected a location for that. And then a potential location for a future West End skateboard park. The Cataraqui West Community Park has been identified as a possible location for the future West End skate park, and space has been reserved to accommodate it in both concepts. There will, however, be a separate public consultation process for the skate park at a later date, with 2 or 3 other potential candidate sites in the West being considered. The skateboard park project is currently forecast to start in 5 years, subject to a separate council approval. And the park washroom building is currently not in the city's 15-year capital plans. The next couple slides, we're going to specifically start to speak about the park layout, layout plan A. So concept A has the park entry at the midpoint of the park block that fronts onto Holden, and the parking lot is positioned parallel to the street line of Holden. The tennis and the pickleball courts are located in the northeast portion of the site and are accessed by walkways from the parking lot. The softball diamond is located in the northwest corner of the park, and it's positioned strategically between 2 stands of mature trees, while the rectangular sports field is oriented in an east-west direction in the southeast corner of the park, immediately east of a mature stand of trees. We have the next slide, please. Thank you. The playground, the shade structure, the splash pad, basketball court, and the grassed open play space are located in the heart of the park, immediately east of a mature stand of trees. The internal park pathways are sensitively routed through the stand of mature trees with safe and convenient connections to the existing and future residential areas, the future trail and the hydro corridor, and the gas line pathway. as well as to the future schools to the south. A naturalized meadow is proposed in the southwest portion of the park. A space near the road has been set aside to accommodate the future skateboard park, while the future washroom building is located just north of the parking lot. The next couple slides are going to be provide you an overview of Park Layout Plan B. The location for the park entry is at the midpoint of the park block, similar to the first concept, but the parking lot in this concept runs east-west towards the heart of the park. The tennis courts and the tennis courts and pickleball courts are located in the northeast portion of the site, and they're in closer proximity to the parking lot. The softball diamond, as per the previous concept, is located in the northwest corner of the park, and the rectangular sports field is oriented east-west in the southeast corner of the park. This concept shows a proposed dog park in the north central portion of the park. It's 1.5 acres in size, and it extends into the hydro corridor lands to the north. It'd be envisioned that the dog park would have containment fencing and would have some open areas, as well as a dog run through the brush. The playground, the shade structure, the splash pad, and the future washroom building are located south of the parking lot, while the basketball court is located adjacent to Holden Street. And the potential for the West End skate park is located south of the basketball court. The location for both the basketball court and the skate park is near the street. And, as designers, we're really strongly encouraged to provide eyes into the park to create safer play environments. As with the previous concepts, the internal park pathways are going to be sensitively rooted through the stand of mature trees with safe and convenient connections. And once again, a naturalized meadow is proposed in the southwest portion of the park. The next few slides, I'm going to talk about the city's off-leash dog park policy. So any design of a dog park in Kingston must adhere to the city's policy for off-leash dog areas within parks. And some of the critical points of the policy that need to be considered are as follows. The dog park must be a minimum size of 1.5 acres. The dog park must be located a minimum of 15 meters away from playgrounds and splash pads. The dog park must be fenced, and the dog park should avoid natural or wooded areas. The proposed location of the dog park within this park is at the central north end of the park, because this location can meet all of the requirements stated in the city's policies. Notable considerations for the proposed dog park include the dog park's location in an area of brush that includes some mature trees. The dog park will include both an open dog run area as well as a dog trail through the brush. Fencing will be used to protect mature specimen trees located within the designated dog park area, and the dog park boundary will be fenced. While most of the dog park will be located within the park block itself, a portion of it is proposed to extend into the existing hydro corridor to the north of the park. Although typical hydro corridors are considered suitable locations for dog parks, the use of hydro-owned lands for this purpose require the city to enter into an agreement with Hydro One. Discussions with Hydro One for this purpose have been already initiated. The dog park is further subject to separate council approval. And if option B is selected as the preferred park layout and the dog park is not installed as part of this project, then this space shown here could be preserved for a future addition of an off-leash dog park at a later date. So in an effort to reduce the effect of the dog park noise on neighboring residences, the dog park has been located approximately 45 meters from future residential lands to the north, 100 meters from existing residential lands to the east, 115 meters setback to future residential lands to the west, and 120 meter setback to the existing residential lands to the south. The next few slides, it's going to provide you with an overview of the options for the playground. So there are 3 options that we've prepared for the playground equipment. Each playground equipment option can be placed on either of the proposed park layout options. So the details for each are as follows. So playground equipment design option 1 includes 3 major pieces of play equipment. A triple bay swing set with 6 seats, including toddler buckets and an accessible mounted bucket seat with an overhead harness. A zip rail with 2 50-foot long tracks and includes an accessible molded bucket seat. And I can tell you that this zip rail is one of the most popular play apparatuses that I've seen in recent years. And we opened a park up in East Gwillimbury, and this people were lined up for hours to get on this. And then there's a combination junior and senior play structure. The platform play structure consists of 5 slides, including 1 double straight, 1 double curved, and 1 single curved, 4 types of climbers, an overhead ladder with stepping pods, an accessible stationary cycler, some ground level play panels, and transfer platforms. And you can see from these images that this option comes with a lot of different play options. The next couple of slides will provide you with an option, the overview of the playground equipment design option 2. This design includes a double bay swing set with 4 seats, including a toddler seat and an accessible bucket seat with an overhead harness. A saucer swing, which is accessible and can accommodate up to 4 people at once, or 4 children at once. It includes a large spinner, which is 13 feet high and 10 feet in diameter, and has the capacity for over 50 children at once. And this option has separate structures for junior and senior play. The junior structure includes a small curved slide, stepping pods and stools, a climber, a horizontal ladder, and transfer platforms. The senior play structure consists of an 8-foot high spiral slide, a 4-foot curved slide, 4 types of climbers, 3 overhead ladders, a ripple pass balancer, an accessible stationary cycler, ground level play panels, stepping pods and stools, a shade roof, and transfer platforms. The final play equipment option, option 3, includes a swing set with 5 seats, including a toddler seat and an accessible molded bucket seat, a large vault climber that has numerous climbing levels that can accommodate up to 40 children and offers tremendous opportunities for climbing, hanging, and balancing. This option includes a teeter-totter that has that is a 2-seated spring rocker. This option also includes separate structures for both junior and senior play. The junior play structure includes a 4-foot double wavy slide, a 3-foot curved slide, a monkey bar with rings, a 3-foot climber, ground level play panels, and transfer platforms. The next slide shows the large vault climber, which as mentioned has numerous climbing levels, and it can accommodate up to 40 children and offers tremendous opportunities for climbing, hanging, and balancing, as well as encouraging social interaction among the users. The senior play structure includes a 7-foot slide with twist, a 4-foot double slide, 3 types of climbers, a cable bridge, a hammock, which I think will be very popular with adults, a rain stick, ground level play panels, and shade elements and transfer platforms. The next few slides will provide an overview of the splash pad equipment options. So we've prepared 2 splash pad options. Once again, each splash pad option can be placed on either of the proposed park layout plans. So let's start with option A. Option A includes 4 vertical spray elements. The first is the sphere at the top of the sun spray that spins to create a spiraling water effect. The bucket trio has 3 dump buckets, and then water streams from the center of the spray loop to provide an instant soak. The silhouette's misting effect is refreshing and calming, while the ground jets are suitable for toddler play. And you can see that how they're positioned within the hard surface area. Option B includes the following components: the helico, which is a vertical piece that has 2 spinning water curtains. The Spirou is a self-spinning water jet that can operate at different speeds. The Splash 5 has 5 dump buckets that spill at different rates. The Spray Dome and the Water Bug are suitable for toddler play, while there's also a variety of ground jets that are interactive within the water play area. And you can see that from the perspectives that are provided on those 2 slides. So the last part of our presentation will just be to provide you with an overview of the community trail system plans, which it hasn't really been developed any further than the last public meeting, but I thought that we would be prudent to present those again, just so that people are reminded of the opportunities for potential trail locations to provide connectivity through your community. So the park's ideally situated to link with the east-west trail located in the hydro corridor to the north and the gas line trail to the south, as well as the future north-south trail in the Collins Creek open space lands located to the west of the park. The design will also consider connections to future schools and surrounding residential areas. The Collins Creek Trail is a north-south trail segment within the open space lands, and it runs southward from Creekford Road along a high ridge that overlooks the creek. And that continues down to the hydro corridor, and then from there continues south further to Cataraqui Woods Drive. The trail will be constructed as a low-impact nature trail with a gravel surface, and the proposed alignments will be thoughtfully rooted through and around mature trees. There is an opportunity as part of this current project to provide a connection, a more improved connection from Cataraqui Woods Drive to the existing trail that's located in the treat area. You can see on the right side of that slide, there is an existing trail that runs north from there. And so there will be an opportunity to provide a connection to get from that trail up to Cataraqui Woods Drive. The Hydro Corridor Trail is currently used for a variety of recreational purposes. The trail will be constructed with a gravel surface and will complement the existing uses. Now, the city doesn't own these Hydro Corridor lands, so as part of the trail planning process, the city will have to enter into an agreement with Hydro One. But I can say that the initial contact with Hydro One to obtain permission for the trail has been made. On the south end of the park, there is a future gas line pathway, and currently this gas line easement is overgrown with some beaten down tracks that run through it, Our vision is to formalize this pathway and construct it for pedestrian use. Obviously, the timing of the construction is tied to the pace of development of future residential subdivisions, which may occur over the next 5 to 10 years. So that's the end of my formal part of the presentation. We look forward to any questions you may have. So thank you for your time. We love to hear feedback from the public. We're looking forward to selecting a preferred concept plan for the park. We're looking forward to getting your feedback on, the play equipment and the splash pad, and then getting in the new year, moving forward with the detailed design of the park. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. So I'm going to ask everybody to turn on, not everybody, I mean the panel members, to turn on their cameras and microphones, and then we can field the questions as they come in. Nancy will be moderating and directing. Thanks, Nancy.
Thanks, Patricia, and thanks, Kevin, for your great presentation. How we'd like to handle the questions tonight, because we know that everybody is going to have some great questions and comments, and we want to make sure that we have the chance to answer all of those questions. We'd like to start off with any general questions you might have about the park or any of the equipment options, and then we can move into any specific questions about the off-leash dog park. Please remember you're welcome to use the Q&A to type in your questions, or you're also welcome to raise your hand. I'm going to be monitoring for both of these, and I will acknowledge your question and share that with the panel. So we can get started whenever everybody is ready. I'll just pause for a moment and wait for some of those questions to come in. Please don't be shy. We'd love to hear your questions. All right, we have our first question tonight. Bradley has asked if we can let them know the surface type of the basketball court, the tennis courts, pickleball court, and playgrounds. Kevin, can you answer that one?
Sure. Yeah, good question. I believe that all the surfaces, well, certainly the court surfaces will be asphalt. I don't know for sure if they're going to be acrylic. Details we'll have to work through with the city. I understand that the play grounds will be wood fiber, which is a resilient safety surfacing. Did I answer?
Yeah.
That's it.
I can just read. We typically will do acrylic, colored acrylic surfacing on the pickleball courts and the tennis courts on top of the asphalt.
Great. Thank you, Patricia and Kevin. I also have a question from Nick. Can you share the timeline of construction completion? Patricia, are you able to handle that?
Yes, I can answer that. So we're hoping to commence construction of the park in the 2023 construction season, next spring, summer. And then construction completion of the park project will not be until the following summer construction season, 2024. And then weather permitting, some small items may be carried over into 2025.
Thank you, Patricia. Our next question is from Nick. They have asked about parking. Will the adjacent schools, one future and one currently in construction, be available for parking as well during non-school hours, of course? Patricia, are you able to answer that one?
Yes, I think I can. I think we would have to have discussions with the school boards. There's going to be two schools adjacent, one to the south, the French public school, and then they're both to the south. One's immediately south, and then the Limestone District School Board, or no, the Catholic school. And I think they are open to allowing parking in their lots outside of school hours, provided that it's we're considerate about how long the cars are there. And I think they're open to that. And there may be some on-street parking in addition to our parking lot that we will be providing in the park.
Great, thank you, Patricia. The next question from Nick is about winter maintenance. So what is our plan regarding winter maintenance to encourage use throughout the winter months? Patricia, can you take that one?
I think I can start with that, but I may have to have Neil jump in and help me. So I'm presuming you might be talking about pathways and clearing of pathways so that we can walk in the winter months. So we will work with Public Works on determining whether the pathways will be cleared. At this stage, we haven't got pathways designed yet to present to them to get their feedback on whether they would clear them or not. But we would definitely enter into conversation with them about that.
Please go ahead, Neil.
Hi, everyone. If that's a perfect answer, Patricia. I can tell you what we do in other community parks and linear pathway systems in neighborhoods in other parts of the city, and that may be a good hint as to the service level that will occur in this park. So generally, the pathways in parks are not winter controlled. They're not sanded or salted and plowed. There are some exceptions to that, and those are typically in urban areas where it's a major pathway connection between an area of commerce or an area of residence, and the park just happens to be in the middle. Something like City Park in downtown Kingston is a good example. Between the university and the hospital and the residential area, they plow some of the paths through there. But most of our suburban parks don't get the pathways plowed. I will say, however, that some of the linear pathway systems that are not, sidewalks on the roads, which are kept clear, like the Greenwood Park Trail, which is a paved pathway system around the Greenwood Park in the east end of the city, that gets snow plowed, and it's used for both commuting as well as recreational use. It doesn't get plowed as quickly as the other paths because it's not as important as a sidewalk. But when the gas line pathway, which is one of the linear pathway systems in our Trails Master Plan for this community, does get built, I suspect there will be a lot of interest, and we're going to try and make it asphalt so that it could be plowed. I suspect there'll be a lot of interest for that to happen. And that pathway system actually comes through this park. The park will be building the first piece of it. And when the lands to the west become a neighborhood and you get another street to the west, then we'll be able to connect to it. And at that point, that pathway may be able to be plowed. So I think it's kind of a two-part answer. The majority of the park will not be plowed, but the linear pathway system, of which a piece of it goes through the park in the future, is got a good chance of getting winter control. Thanks.
Thank you, Neil and Patricia. We do have our first question about the off-leash dog park, so I am going to jump into that now. This question is from Shane. Shane isn't sure what the rules are surrounding the establishment of off-leash dog parks, but are you allowed to make improvements to things like drainage? A couple of the existing off-leash parks become mud baths during the spring season or after heavy rains. Are you able to speak to this one, Neil?
Sure. So I think we are allowed to make improvements to drainage. We have a number of well-drained dog parks that still manage to become mud baths. predominantly because they're used year round, and very, very regularly, regardless of the weather, because people go to the dog parks quite often, morning or evening, every single day. So if it's raining, people still use them. Whereas the balance of park spaces or pathways generally don't get a lot of use on a rain day. Dog parks are kind of one of those funny exceptions. So I think if a dog park were to go forward on this site, I think we'd be likely looking at a similar circumstance. We'd do the best we can to create positive drainage, and perch that sort of really busy area that's right by the entrance of the dog park, perch that up as well as we can, and treat the surface material with something durable like wood chips. But the reality is, unless it's paved, the dogs are going to rip it up. So we'll do the best we can if the dog park goes forward on this site. Thanks.
Thank you, Neil. I have the next question here. And the question is, why is a washroom facility not a phase 1 consideration at this time? Neil, are you able to answer this, please?
Yes, thanks. Patricia and I talked about this in advance because we thought we might get the question. So it is a little bit of a long-winded answer, so bear with me. When the city gets its money to build the community parks in new neighborhoods, that money is called a development charge. It comes from the builders of your homes, for which you have reimbursed them when you've bought your homes, as a fee. And that fee is determined through a very complex calculation based on the existing service levels of all the other parks in the city. Now, we don't have washrooms in all the other parks in the city. In fact, we have very few washrooms in parks. So on average, that's this sort of amount of money that comes out of that calculation on average doesn't allow for us to have any funding to support a washroom facility. So typical park washroom is between $500,000 and $1 million. This project is approximately $4 million in budget, and the service level for this park means that we couldn't afford to deliver a washroom without foregoing all of the other items that are required to be installed as part of council direction. So that's the reason why. Essentially, it's a financial reason. That being said, the city has a lot of interest in park washrooms and how they're distributed around the city. I think that we'll probably see over the next few years a strong desire to come up with a master plan about where the washrooms should be in parks. I think we've got washrooms in some parks that may not need to be retained in other parts of the city, and there's some parks that have a lot of active use, where we might see park washrooms being built. And this is likely one of those sites. That's why we're going to preserve space for it and put in the pipes to support it in the future. So it would be a fairly stress-free exercise to drop a small building in place. But it'll have to wait until that time. And there's no current master plan for park washrooms that the city has in place. The Parks and Recreation Master Plan didn't address it. And it's likely something we'll see maybe, like I said, I think in probably the next 3 or 4 years, we'll probably see that happen. And then we'll take direction from City Council on that. We did get a question when we met in August or July on this, the last time we met, about would there be portalets on the site? So the answer is yes. It is highly likely that a park with all these active amenities like sports fields and sports courts, people are going to need to use the toilet. So portalets are likely a service that will be provided on the site in the summer, in the park season. Thanks.
Thank you, Neil. I'm not seeing any other questions right now, so we're just going to pause for a moment. And while you're thinking of your questions, also just to remind you that there will be another opportunity to share your comments or ask your questions tomorrow at the Avista Center between 3 and 5 p.m. Or you can also go online to the Get Involved Kingston project page, where we'll have an online survey available for you to complete by December 15th to share those comments. And Julia behind the scenes there has dropped a link to that project page into the chat so that you can easily click through. I do see another question has now popped up. Nick has asked, what is the plan regarding lighting? Will the paths be lit? Will the soccer or baseball fields be outfitted with lighting as well for night games? Kevin, can I ask you to take that one?
Sure. Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I know that typically there is lighting provided for parking lots. Typically for, some walkways will have some lighting. Neil and Patricia, you guys can confirm that. I think that there's going to be a base level of lighting provided, and then down the road, I do believe there may be lighting for the sports fields, but it's not included as part of this this proposal at this time.
Patricia and Neil, feel free to jump in if you have more info to share.
Do you want to go ahead, Patricia, or do you want me? I've just got the schedule for the sports field lighting up on my screen here.
So my understanding is that it's future, that we're going to plan for it and prepare all the underground servicing required so that when we are ready to install it in the future phase, then everything is there and ready to go. So the lighting for the sports fields, baseball and soccer, or I think soccer fields is future, although we're planning on it. It's just not covered by the initial budget.
That's correct. But what is nice to understand perhaps about these future items we're talking about is that some of them are already approved in principle through large-scale master plans by City Council. So for example, the skate park in the west end of the city, which could be in a number of locations, but this is one of the good candidate sites, is actually approximately a $750,000 project, and that is approved by City Council in principle. When it comes time for the year for that to be, for the budget to be approved, that's the final sort of check stop for that to happen, and that's about 5 years out at this point. The sports lights for both the softball diamond and the soccer field are approved again in principle for to be distributed across the city, but based on where the existing soccer fields and softball diamonds are located, we expect that this site will likely also, receive lights for those sports fields. And again, those are budgeted, but that budget needs to be approved sort of the year of when they're planned. And they're approximately, I'm just looking at here, approximately 7 years out. And that also includes the sports courts. So it's not just the softball and soccer, but also the pickleball and tennis courts. So over time, this will become a park you can use in the nighttime. However, until that happens, it's a really kind of a daytime use space. It's going to be a large nature park, and it's really not a place to be in the evening. So there will not be parking lot and pathway lights in order to lead you through all the spaces. We will likely consider a security light underneath the shade structure, because we find that that has a tendency to dissuade loitering and hanging out at 11 o'clock at night, under that structure. So other than, those sort of more utilitarian kind of lighting things, we're not going to be proposing pathway lighting as part of this project. But when those other amenities occur, then we're going to have to start to think about parking lot and pathway lighting to get people to all these spaces in the park. Again, that's in the future.
Thank you, Neil. And I'll just wait another moment here before we move on to see if there are any other questions tonight. Here we go. I have a question from Bradley. How many basketball nets are in the plans for the court? Kevin, can you take that one?
I believe it's a full basketball court with two nets.
Thank you. Neil, I saw your hand up. Was that to draw attention to the question?
Sorry, I'm doing a emoji thing. I don't know how to stop. It was no, I knew you had the question in hand about the basketball court. No, if there are no more questions, I just wanted to provide a little bit of feedback about next steps. Maybe Patricia and I could do that. I know there was a really good slide about the next steps in the project, sort of over the next 3 years as the project is sort of, built out. But I just wanted to talk a little bit more specifically about sort of the next 2 or 3 months of what's going on. And I think that may be helpful for people who are talking to their neighbors and encouraging their friends and family to, give us feedback in the survey platform or come and see us tomorrow afternoon at the Invista Center. The one item that we will need feedback on the playgrounds and the splash pads and generally which concept overall people like for the community park. But the one item we'll need to have a lot of detailed information on is opinions, both positive and negative, in relation to the dog park proposal. The reason for that is because the dog park proposal is not part of the original Parks and Recreation Master Plan for the city. In fact, the city has more than enough dog parks per capita to provide the service levels that City Council has already approved. In fact, we have almost more dog parks per capita than anywhere else in the country. That being said, because this is a really strategic location within the city where there are not other dog parks nearby and where the community members have said that this is a good candidate site, we really need to get that feedback, both positive and negative, and determine if we see consensus among the community. And then at that point, we have to report to City Council through a committee and get special permission to advance a dog park in this location. So it's a bit different than our normal parks design process. That would likely occur this winter. And then we would, march ahead with the working construction drawings once we know what the direction is on that. But I just wanted to explain that that's a slightly different process than our traditional sort of consult, take in feedback and surveys, tally it all up, and then, move forward with the design. There is this kind of slightly separate layer of approval required by City Council. We won't be seeking additional funds. It's not a significantly expensive facility. I couldn't estimate how much it is. It's maybe $100,000, but I think out of a $4 million budget, we can probably find room for that. I guess the issue is more just that it requires under policy a separate permission. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Neil. I will just bring us over to our last slide and say thank you again to everyone for participating tonight. Before you sign off, we would like to ask you to complete a quick evaluation poll just to let us know how we did tonight. And while you are completing that poll, I will again say that you're welcome to join us at the Invista Center tomorrow from 3 to 5 p.m. to take a closer look at the designs and speak with our team. And you're also welcome to visit Get Involved Kingston to add your comments to an online survey that will be available until December 15th at 4 p.m. All of the input from this engagement session and from the survey will be shared on the Get Involved project page. So if you've signed up to receive updates about this project, you will be notified when that's live on the site. If you haven't signed up to receive those notifications, please reach out to Patricia and ask to be added to the project list. We have dropped Patricia's email address into the chat today, but you can also find that on that Get Involved Kingston page. So thank you again for taking the time to join us tonight and for completing our poll. Thanks again for joining us, everyone.
Thanks, Nancy. Good night.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thanks, everyone.
See you later.
Kevin,
Bye for
Patricia.
now.